Hello and welcome to CVR English. I'm Simran and these are the top updates. The race to win the Republican nomination for US President in 2024 has unofficially begun. Republican Party leaders met for a fundraiser in Iowa, which holds the earliest presidential primaries in the US and plays an important role in most campaigns. At the event, it was clear once again that the Republican race is all about its fortuner Donald Trump.
From the reception, it was clear this is former President Donald Trump's race to lose. Facing multiple criminal investigations with more expected, far from running from his potential imprisonment, he's running on it.
If I weren't running, I would have nobody coming after me.
Only one of his potential rivals even mentioned his criminal liability, and it didn't go well.
Donald Trump is running to stay out of prison. And if we elect... I know. Listen, I know the truth. The truth is hard. But if we elect Donald Trump, we are willingly giving Joe Biden 4 more years in the White House.
Only a few candidates dare to even make a veiled reference to Trump.
The siren song of populism unmoored to conservative values, as different times calls for different leadership. To defeat Joe Biden, I believe we must give the American people new Republican leadership.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who is far behind Trump in the polls, but leading everyone else,
Hello, Iowa!
is trying to paint himself as willing to go farther than Trump in office.
I pledge to be the president to finally solve the issue of the southern border. We're sending the military to the border. Yes, we will build a border wall, and we will use deadly force against the Mexican drug cartels.
As these Republican Party leaders filed out, the event over, it was clear the unprecedented criminal cases against Trump are not hurting him at all.
Well, I think that's kind of the way politics operate anymore. They just, I really don't believe that he's a criminal and he's done anything wrong.
He said about if he was really low in votes and not popular and not actually posing a threat, I think those charges would drop immediately.
From the reception, it was clear.
At least 12 people have been killed and more than 100 others injured after an explosion ripped through a fireworks warehouse in southern Thailand. Officials said the blast in the town of Songai Kolok in the southern province of Narathiwat on Saturday is thought to have been caused by welding during construction work on the building. The provincial governor said.
This is what's left of the warehouse in a town bordering Malaysia. Twisted metal and rubble are all that remain. Nearly a ton of illegally stored fireworks exploded, igniting a fire.
The number of the injured is around 100. We have set up a station to receive a report on casualties and damage.
More than 200 houses surrounding the warehouse have been damaged, forcing families to move to a shelter.
It went on for an hour before the explosion stopped. It was chaotic. We stuck to each other here and there. We didn't know what to do.
Police are now investigating the cause of the explosion. Residents say warnings about dangerous goods being stored at the warehouse have long been ignored.
It's scary because I've warned them not to build the warehouse because it's dangerous. If it exploded, the impact radius would be 10 kilometers. Why do they have to build it near the community? But no one cared to listen to my advice, and this has happened.
The police say the owner of the factory will be charged with negligence. Kulsum Sharif, Al Jazeera. This is what's left of the warehouse in a town.
Drones have targeted the heart of the Russian capital's financial districts. This is the first attack to hit the area which houses Moscow's top companies. It is also the first time that drones have raced deep into the capital since May. One of the drones damaged the face of a 50-story skyscraper. People in Central African Republic have voted in a referendum on a new constitution that would allow President Faustin Archange Touadera to stay in office longer. Opposition and rights groups say the referendum is illegal and called for people to boycott. China's slowing post-lockdown recovery has several foreign companies worried. From banks to chimpanzees, foreign companies are now treating cautiously on China. This is not good news for the world's second largest economy and is expected to weigh on bottom line of companies investing in China. While the tensions are on the rise in West Africa following the COP and Niger, multiple West African nations have imposed sanctions on the impoverished country.
Appearing active and free despite a failed mutiny, Wagner mercenary boss Yevgeny Prigozhin, who rebelled against the Russian army top brass last month, apparently hailed Niger's military coup as good news. He purportedly said Niger had rid itself of colonizers and offered his fighters services to restore order. It came through a Telegram voice message that sounded like Prigozhin, though Reuters could not confirm with certainty that it was him. A video on Wednesday, which Reuters has seen but could not verify its authenticity, showed Prigozhin telling his fighters in Belarus they would take no further part in the Ukraine war and would head for Africa instead. These were some of the latest signs Prigozhin remained active even after his brazen insurrection against President Vladimir Putin in late June. Prigozhin was last seen leaving Russia's Rostov on June 24th, heading for Moscow to oust Russia's defense minister. He stood down after a deal was brokered for safe passage for him and his men to Belarus. Since then, the Kremlin claims Prigozhin had even attended a meeting with Putin, who had earlier called the abortive mutiny a stab in the back. Wagner was founded as a way for Russia to get involved in wars in the Middle East and Africa with full deniability. The West sees Prigozhin's failed mutiny as a sign of weakness from the
The Danish government says it will seek to find a legal tool that would enable authorities to prevent the burning of copies of the Quran in front of other countries. Embassies in Denmark.
Meanwhile, the Swedish Prime Minister said that he had been in close contact with his Danish counterpart and that a similar process was already underway in Sweden. Last week, Sweden's government ordered 15 agencies to strengthen the country's ability to prevent terrorism in response to a worsened security situation. Denmark and Sweden have found themselves in international spotlight in the recent weeks following anti-Islam protests where the Quran, the Muslim holy book, has been damaged or burned. The burnings have raised diplomatic tensions throughout West Asia and the two Nordic countries. Both Danish and Swedish envoys have been summoned in a slew of West Asian nations. Both countries have said they deplore the burning of the Quran, but cannot prevent it under rules protecting free speech. Saudi Arabia and Iraq have called for a meeting of the Jeddah-based Organization of Islamic Cooperation to address Quran desecration in both Sweden and Denmark. This meeting is to be held later today. Meanwhile, the Swedish Prime Minister said
hours before the opening of a significant military parade that President Vladimir Putin would be attending. Russian officials claim to have shot down 3 Ukrainian drones that were attacking Moscow early on Sunday. Images from the crash site in Moscow revealed a skyscraper's facade damaged on one floor, with broken glass and bent and cracked structural beams.
Зазнала банкрутства на полі бою. Сьогодні вже 522-й день, як триває так звана спеціальна воєнна операція, яку російське керівництво розраховувало на тиждень-два. Україна стає міцніше. Поступово війна повертається на територію Росії, до її символічних центрів та військових баз. І це неминучий, природній та абсолютно справедливий процес. Але маємо бути свідомі того, що, як і минулого року, так і цієї зими російські терористи ще можуть бити по нашій енергетиці, по критичних об'єктах. Сьогодні ми обговорили із громадами поточний стан підготовки усіх можливих сценаріїв.
Ukrainian kamikaze drones unleashed chaos in the heart of Moscow's business district in a three-pronged attack. This is the moment of the blast. The area, several miles from the Kremlin, is known for its modern high-rise towers, and one of the buildings damaged was home to 3 Russian government ministries, as well as residential apartments.
Мы с друзьями сняли апартаменты отдохнуть, и в каком-то моменте просто услышали взрыв, и прям волной его прям подскочили все.
In his hometown of St. Petersburg on Sunday, President Vladimir Putin reviewed a parade of warships and nuclear submarines and declared that the Russian Navy will be receiving 30 new ships this year. During Russia's annual Navy Day celebration, which takes place in the Gulf in Finland and on the river Neva in St. Petersburg, 45 ships, submarines, and other vessels participated. The Kremlin reported that 3,000 members of the Navy also took part in a march on land.
Благодарю личный состав военно-морского флота России за безупречное выполнение стоящих перед вами задач, за вашу надежность, усердие, стойкость, за безупречную преданность отчизне. Слава военно-морскому флоту России! Ура!
Around 3,000 Navy personnel also took part in a parade on land. The parade takes place in the Gulf of Finland and on the river Neva in St. Petersburg. The Russian president was flanked by Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and head of the Navy. The Kremlin also confirmed that 4 African heads of state attended Sunday's event and 5 other African countries sent representatives. They were invited after a Russia-Africa summit in St. Petersburg, which concluded on Friday. Early in the day, Russian forces intercepted 3 Ukrainian drones over the city of Moscow. The country's Navy Day is celebrated on the last Sunday of July every year. Russia commands the second largest naval force in the world. Additionally, the Russian Navy possesses advanced capabilities in submarine warfare with a significant number of nuclear-powered submarines.
The UK rail workforce has not received a pay increase in 4 years, and 2,300 union members just received layoff warnings. Rail Industry Membership Organization British Rail stated they had given unions a 13 raise in the lowest pay categories to resolve the conflict, but that proposal was rejected without being put to members. The union said that rail operators and the government had not bargained in good faith.
The union says the rail staff have not had a pay rise in 4 years, and recently 2,300 union members were issued redundancy notices. The union argued that rail companies and the government have not bargained in good faith. A spokesperson for a British rail industry membership body said they had offered unions a 13% increase in the lowest pay grades to resolve the dispute, but that proposal was rejected without being put to members. Meanwhile, the British Parliament passed the Strike Act on July 20th. It enforces a minimum service level requirement for 6 departments, including the National Rail Service. If the unions refuse to provide the basic service, such strikes will be considered illegal, and the unions will be prosecuted, and workers involved in the strike could be fired. The union says the rail staff have not had a pay rise in 4 years, and recently 2,300
Local authorities in northwest Pakistan reported that a massive bomb that tore down a political event left at least 40 people dead on the outskirts of Kar in Pakistan's northwest Bajor district. which borders Afghanistan, the fundamentalist Jamiat Ulema-e-Islam party gathering was where the explosion occurred on Sunday. The Wagner organization, a mercenary organization that rose to prominence following its open rebellion against Russian President Vladimir Putin at an abrogative mutiny attempt, is once again in the spotlight. Poland is now concerned about the group's activities.
Sytuacja staje się jeszcze groźniejsza. Otóż mamy informację, że ponad 100 najemników grupy Wagnera przesunęło się w kierunku przesmyku suwalskiego niedaleko Grodna na Białorusi. Po co to zrobili? Na pewno jest to krok w kierunku dalszego ataku hybrydowego na polskie terytorium. Będą pewnie przebrani za białoruską Straż Graniczną i będą pomagali nielegalnym imigrantom przedostać się na terytorium Polski, zdestabilizować Polskę. Ale przypuszczalnie będą starali się też przeniknąć do Polski. Udając nielegalnych imigrantów, będą starali się do Polski przejść, przeniknąć.
In the backdrop of these developments, neighboring Lithuania has echoed the same sentiments. This is because videos of Wagner mercenaries training Belarusian special forces surfaced earlier. Remember, Belarus, a Russian ally, shares borders with 3 NATO countries: Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia. In a preemptive move, Poland also moved over 1,000 troops to the country's eastern part on July 8th. And Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin was seen welcoming his fighters in Belarus after he left Russia. Prigozhin moved to Belarus as a part of the deal with President Putin when his plans to take over the Russian Defense Forces failed. Remember, the Battle of Bakhmut, from butchered bodies to mass graveyards, the world has seen the battle capabilities of the Wagner mercenaries. The military group also operates in
On Sunday, while Janta supporters attacked the French embassy in Niamey, West African nations imposed sanctions and threatened to use force if Negro's corps leaders failed to restore ousted President Mohamed Bazoum within a week.
Demonstrators held signs reading "Long live the Nigerian army, down with France." The former colonial ruler, France, has suspended security cooperation and financial aid to the jihadist-hit country after General Abdurrahman Tiani, the head of the elite presidential guard, declared himself the West African country's new leader. Now, Wednesday's military takeover marks the 5th coup in the West African nation's history since it gained independence from France in 1960. Paris is now furious. France warns that it will not tolerate any attack on its interests. France says it would retaliate if its citizens were attacked in Niger. Along with the former colonial ruler, the European Union has also suspended security cooperation and financial aid to Niger. The junta has warned of an imminent military intervention. Meanwhile,
The world's largest butterfly survey is taking place this summer, and wildlife enthusiasts are being urged to participate. The count runs from just over 2 weeks unit August 6th. But the recent decline in butterfly population is cause for concern. Well, that was the wrap-up bulletin. For more news and updates, keep watching CVR English with Sinath.